Yo, we just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's hit the shore fine. Winter ready on the four ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on your own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy George McKay back here again on another edition of Straight Talk Wrestling. And I got a returning guest, one of my favorite people in pro wrestling, one of my favorite cruiserweights of all time. I said that the last time he was on the show. Please help me welcome back TJP.
Thank you very much, George, for having me.
No problem, man. No problem. So we were just talking a little bit before we got on. Fatherhood, life changes. You got two, beautiful sons right now. Congratulations on that. You had both from in between the times we spoke last. What's been the coolest thing about fatherhood for you?
I hate seeing little versions of me run around. I mean, I guess it kind of gives me a little bit of insight as who I am, I guess, because you see them do these things and pick up on these habits that you have, and maybe like forget about certain things, and you remember like, oh man, I used to do that when I was a kid or whatever, or like, oh, I used to do that, but I kind of do it like this now, like little things, maybe it's like a facial expression or just a reaction or something. So I just, I see them and their demeanor, and that's to me is the most interesting thing is that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, from before, I got two daughters myself. So the juxtaposition is there. Your boys are probably rambunctious, very curious. My one daughter is my youngest, but my oldest, the mini host, if you remember her, she is a little bit more. She's a teenager now. She's 16. So I don't, we have the just, Dad, can I have $50? Dad, can I have $20? That's pretty much the relationship right now. But yeah, the teenage years are they're fun. I still can't believe how quick time flies, especially when you have kids and the family and everything like that. But that is the coolest part about, I think, is having those small children and seeing those things that are happening and seeing the juxtaposition of when you were a child and remembering, like you said, the things that you've forgotten. Is there any crazy stuff that they've done? Have they already started jumping all over the place? Like, are we seeing wrestlers in the future?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really I don't think I really care what they end up doing. And Nikki, Arya, their mother, she I think she maybe would like if they were wrestlers, but I don't think either of us really are gonna try and push them towards that. But I feel like they're naturally geared towards it because they excel very physically and stuff, and socially they're more stunted. So I feel like I'm perfect here. You're like every pro wrestler in the history of the world. Poor social skills and fantastic physical abilities.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah, our oldest son, James, he's 3, and then the youngest, Noah, just turned 1 in December, and they're both very Noah's already running around, climbing things. I built a little jungle gym for them in the living room, and I really built it for James because he's 3, and we can't always take him to the park as much as we would want. And I feel like his little brother plays on it and climbs on it as much as he does, and I know some other parents that have 1-year-old or like 8-month-old, somewhere around that range, and they're not doing the things that Noah's doing. So I feel like I won't be able to stop them once they realize what Dad does for a living. So
Yeah, but you know what, man? I mean, honestly, what you do for a living is one of the coolest jobs in the world. You get to travel the world, you get to see life, you get to experience so many different things. And one of the coolest things is that the last time we spoke, you touched on how you didn't want to really be tied down in any promotion. You were just kind of branch out, do your own thing, but you really wanted to go to Japan. And then you did that, and you've excelled over there like I think you knew you would. My favorite thing is this. I guess this new version of you now, which I absolutely love, the Aswang. I hope I'm saying it right. The Filipino folklore, which is so cool. Actually, in preparing for this conversation, I did my research. This thing is a shapeshifter, can go vampire, can go ghoul, can go human hybrid. Like, this is just, I'm surprised that there's not a horror movie out there with this character, because this thing would be insanely cool. But talk to me about wanting to represent the Filipino heritage that you have and bringing this Aswang version of yourself to life.
yeah, there are some Filipino I think versions of movies, maybe at least two or three that I know of that were pretty big just in the Philippines for the Aswang. Which actually it's really hard to pronounce kind of the exact like local proper way because it's almost like you almost have to be able to really do a good Filipino accent to do it because of the inflection. It's like a swung, you know. So I've come to notice that every I guess person and dialect have their own like pronunciation of it. Like you pronounce it the way that all of my British friends, for example, pronounce it.
Okay,
So
I'm good
like
with it.
that's very common. But yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to pronounce it. But yeah, it is a pretty interesting character. It's the most interesting part of my heritage to me. It's something I've always been fascinated by. And I do think that it would make it for a really cool like mainstream story. I shelved my horror movie writing years ago, just in the sake of my schedule. But I feel like I would love to write something for it and see if something can get made. And yeah, I mean it's a very broad subject matter as far as monsters and the macabre and folklore and stuff like that. And every appearance that I've done, I've based it off of a different sort of version of the folklore because it's not like you said it there with all those different elements. It's not as simple as like say like for the Philippines, the Aswang is like the chupacabra is to Mexico. But in Mexico, there's really only like one chupacabra. Like there's only one idea of it. Just like in America, like we only have one idea of Dracula. Like, there might be a little bit of a different take, but essentially you got, an aristocrat, well dressed, very cunning, very romantic, very, like a very specific imagery that you're dealing with. Whereas in the Philippines, it's almost like a blanket term for like all these other monsters that can be associated with what the aswang is. So every time I appear, I've chosen a different version of the folklore to do. So it's been sort of like a little bit of like a storybook education on it. So everyone represents a different kind.
I love that. And that's the coolest part about it because the creative freedom and the energy that you can bring to all these different versions. And I think that's what is most exciting about this run that you're having in New Japan right now is that creative freedom. You've always enjoyed yourself out there, and I've seen that in every match and every promotion you've represented. But I really feel like we're seeing the version of TJP that's having the most fun. Would I be wrong in saying that?
No, not at all. That's spot on for sure. I mean, I've said this a lot, almost in any interview. New Japan's the team that drafted me. They plucked me right out of high school, and so it's always been sort of my home, even if I leave and come back or whatever. And in Japan and Mexico, infrastructures last for like a long time, So a lot of the elders and people that are there were there when I first got there. So they saw me as a teenager coming in at 17, 18 years old through the dojo. And now they're still there. They got kids that are entering the dojo system themselves. And they've seen my entire life. And so because of that, um, that I get a lot of faith and trust put in me, and that's on top of just having I get just a reputation in the locker room with the guys, like being able to have been, in a rare case of traveled the places I've traveled and have the education that I do. So like there's a lot that I pass on to people and it earns a lot of trust. So it's kind of a perfect storm for me right now that like it's not like I have free reign, but almost anything that if I could think it, they trust that I can do it. So they'll allow me to create it. Which was pretty cool. Like I never thought, I mean, it took me 20 years to create this thing because like there's very few people that can be like, hey, I have this idea, I want to do it. Just let me do it exactly how I want to do it. And I also want to do it on the second biggest show in the industry. Like, like imagine like most major league places won't even let you do it on an episode of television. like Vince won't let you experiment with like something on an episode of Main Event, like he wants to make sure things are like a team effort and crafted very carefully, and for them to be like, yeah, sure, biggest show of the year, first match out of the gate, one of the most important matches on the show, do what you want. Like that was mind blowing that they trusted me with that. But yeah, I mean, it is a lot of fun. I'm having probably the most fun I've ever had with it.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, it translates. And actually, I sat down with Francesco about 8 months ago, 9 months ago. He was actually in Canada. He was at the Man Lucha. We sat down, me and
Oh yeah,
Francesco.
yeah.
Yeah, and we talked. And we actually talked a lot about you because, like I said, I'm a fan. I think you're one of the greatest dudes in the world, and you give my show all kinds of time, which I appreciate. And I talked to him and I said, what's it like being under that learning tree of, a TJP? And at the time, you were there for a little bit with Will Osprey. Like, what's it like being on a learning tree of these guys? He's like, man, I can't. He's like, I can't tell you how much I've leveled up just by the bouncing ideas off of each other and the creative juices are flowing. He's like, this is some of the coolest things that I've done is just being in this, United Empire. He loves it. He loves being in the Empire. And you being the leader right after Osprey was a slam dunk, easy way to do it. You had to earn the guy's respect, of course, of the faction, but now you have it in the palm of your hand. But he was just, he had nothing but great things to say about you. And I'm not asking you to toot your own horn, but when you hear that from one of your stable mates, knowing that you have like you're guiding them and trusting them, and he's still so young, just like you are, that's got to be cool, right?
Yeah, it's especially nice to hear because like I don't know that I've spent as much time with anybody as much as with him as far as like a partnership and mentorship, especially mentorship type role. Um, and he's a kid like anybody else, man. We've had a lot of ups and downs and battles, like as far as like it's like the best way to describe it, it's almost like Indiana Jones in Short Round. Like
Okay.
I swear to God that like there is no greater visual example than if you watch Indiana Jones and Short Round for 15 minutes in the front half of Temple of Doom.
Mhm.
That is me and Akira. Like um the dynamic is literally exactly the same, but he's so good and there's so many parallels because I know what it was like to be young and to be kind of thrust into such a big scenario, the way that he has. And I tell him all the time, I said, you are so much physically better than I was at your age. Like, I had different lessons, mentality, psychology, and things like that. Like, my education was deeper at his age, but like, as far as his ability to do the job, he's so advanced for his age. And so his acceleration, like catching up here, has been so amazing. And just before this last Wrestle Kingdom, I talked to a lot of the young guys in the locker room. It was kind of like either their first or like one of their, or, maybe only their first or second time being in that stage. And just to kind of like motivate them and just give them words of encouragement. But I made a point to pull Akira aside to just let him know, like, this has been such a big arc for you the last 3 years. Like, you realize we're the best in the world at this in the last probably generation. Like, I don't know any other team that could touch us. And that's amazing to say, given our age gap, our cultural gap. We didn't even know each other until our first match together. We literally did not meet a single time. We didn't know anything about each other. And just how good he is and how young he is. And I look forward to this year because he's going to be able to branch out beyond the team and do some singles stuff. And I'm really excited for what he'll be able to do.
Absolutely, man. He is one of the nicest guys in the world. And being half Italian, he schooled me on a lot of things. Okay. I don't even know how to speak Italian at all. I know how to start a conversation, mix and match, but he helped me out a lot. He helped me out a lot with trying to work. I would ask him, how'd you say this? And he would tell me and I would say it back to him. The whole interview was me pretty much repeating back to him what he was teaching me. But it was still a great interview nonetheless. But has he taught you any Italian? Like, how's your Italian accent these days? How you doing with that?
Oh, as they say, as Brad Pitt said before, I speak Italian second best in the group.
I love that. I love that.
Um, which is crazy because Akira is actually French and Italian's just a gimmick. He just learned Italian, you know. That's actually an inside joke not an inside joke, an outside joke that for about 2 years, every podcast I went on that asked me about Akira, I said, he's actually French and that's why he's a redhead. There's no redheads in Italy because they're like, yeah, that's really rare. I said, yeah, because he's not really Italian. It's a gimmick. So for like a year, maybe he had to correct people like, no, TJ's just joking. I really am Italian.
Oh, I love that. I think that is great. That is absolutely
Second,
great.
that was the second, that was the third best joke I've ever played on him.
Oh, that
That,
was the third best? What was the best
third,
best?
um, probably a tie. The one and two are a tie, or maybe it just depends on your sense of humor to switch the order. Uh, I think one of the best ones was so he was really nervous going into a title match that we had one time. He was really nervous going into it was our first title defense. We were in Kobe, and early on in the tour, I borrowed some yen from him to, I don't know, take the train or something like that. Maybe like we're on the bus or something like that. So I owed him like $10 Japanese. And I kept forgetting to give it back to him the whole tour. And he was so nervous going into the last show's big show at Kobe Hall. And I was trying to tell him not to be nervous. Um, and we go to the ring and we get through the announcements. We take off our jackets. He's gonna start. He gets in, I get out, and they ring the bell, and I dip back in and I give him his yen. And I said, here's that 1,000 yen I owe you. I handed him a paper bill. And he looks at me and he goes like this, and he says, I don't have any pockets. You did this on purpose. Like, yeah, I didn't give it to you by accident. Um, we had Gideon at ringside, so he gives the money to Gideon, and they start the match. And he forgot all about how nervous he was in that moment. So I taught him a pretty good lesson.
Absolutely.
That,
I think that.
that was one of the best ones. I paid him back as soon as the bell rang.
Oh my
Uh,
God, that's amazing.
and the other one, the other one, God, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say this one, but
If you don't want it, we don't have to. Don't want. I don't want to. I don't want to get you into trouble. Any heat.
no, no, no. It's not heat. It's just it's locker room humor.
Okay.
So Akira's first language is not Italian, or is Italian. So his first language is not English. So he's pretty good at it, but he doesn't understand street English, right?
Mm.
So for example, um, like if he finishes sauce at like a dinner and then the sauce is now empty, um, he might say something like the sauce is like defeated or something like that.
Okay.
Like not like it's finished. Like he'll use a different word that like it means the same, but it doesn't make any damn sense. If you're
Gotcha.
if you're if you're a North American person, it doesn't make any sense. So his grasp is tenuous. Uh and the first day that I met him, I told him that a term we use in English for being on your period is what Americans say when they're tired. So for the rest of the day, two or three more times, I said this phrase and acted like I was really tired. And so he's picking up on it. And I said it again on the bus the next day, and the other gaijin looked at me, and I said, he thinks it means he's tired. So then everybody started saying it.
Oh, good.
And we kept this up for almost 2 years without telling them.
What?
So I started this Super Juniors of 22, day one, and it kept up until the end of 2023.
Wow.
So we were on, the end goal was that he would start using the term so regularly that before a big press conference or something, like we would get out of the Wrestle Kingdom match. And he always asks me, should I talk first or should you talk first? And I'll tell him, I'll go first, or I'll say, you go first and say this, I'll say this after, or whatever. And I was waiting because I was going to wait until it was so natural that I was going to say you're tired and that's why you lost. And I was going to have him say it at the press conference. But it got ruined because one day he ran into DKC from the LA Dojo, who was in the lobby, and he told DKC, insert phrase here, I'm very tired. And DKC spit his food out laughing. And instantly Akira knew that there was something wrong. And DKC told him that means you're on your period.
Yeah.
And Akira stormed onto the bus and said, you betrayed me.
Oh,
Which in a roundabout sort of way is very exemplary of his grasp of the English language, is that his natural English was you betrayed. No American uses the word betray in conversation.
unless it's like 1600s old school English
Yeah,
where it's like,
like that. Yeah,
I
this is
you
what
sullied my name, sir.
yeah, is this medieval times? Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, the joke lasted for about 2 years, almost 2 years, and DKC gave it away.
wow. If DKC didn't give it away, I think you might have stretched it past the 2 year mark. I really do.
Oh, I would have had him. I would have had him. He said later he had no idea. He was using it. He would use it on the bus and he would use it at bars and stuff when we would go out to dinner. And I'd tell guys, don't like you have to keep it going. You have to keep it going like a little longer because it's going to be a way better payoff. And we waited too long.
Oh, so good. That is amazing. That is incredible. And see, I love that. I love that. I love that locker room humor. I love all three of those pranks were top tier. So kudos to you for that, for sure.
I've
100%.
been around a long time, so
I do. Yes, I understand that completely. I want to talk about, I hope my research is correct, but I had to go back and verify. You were part of the first ever coffin match for New Japan ahead of Wrestle Kingdom 18.
Yeah, for New Japan, yes, but I think somebody said that Stardom randomly did one, like kind of recently, maybe like within a year or two.
Yeah,
But New Japan, yes, as far as I know, yeah,
that's
I
kind of,
believe
if you
because
think
they
about it.
didn't understand at all how it would work. Like when we did it, it was
Yeah,
like we were teaching the fans at Korakuen Hall, like live in the moment. We were teaching them how it works. So it's kind of a trial by fire sort of thing. Sort of pretty much like this last Wrestle Kingdom with the TLC match.
yeah.
Like they only have had what, like one ladder type match in history, and to have all those elements and for them to kind of like to have to learn to understand it, like they're not as savvy to like WWE history or like WCW as people might think, despite the fact that it's a worldwide product. Like a lot of that stuff is very foreign and new to them. So the
So
coffin match was one.
yeah, so what was it? I guess that was about, you kind of answered my question. But what was it like experiencing the first coffin match and then having this fan base, I guess, being intrigued by it, but also at the same time kind of having to teach it without being like, you got to put somebody in here to win, but you still have to go through the motions of the match.
Well, I mean, it's the same concept of, a story is a story is a story is a story. So like, if we have one basic element, we're just wrestling in there, the same approach applies. You kind of you lead them to water, you help them drink. You set up a bowling pin, you knock it down. So it's sort of the same principle. It's just is a lot of it was mostly getting the guys involved to understand like that it is as easy as that. Because it's very easy for the artists to sort of try to overproduce their painting, I guess. And it's like it was more about simplifying our approach as far as getting it. Because I mean, the very first time the War Dogs put Akira on the mat and started pushing him into the coffin, that it was such a big reaction live. Like I knew that they were understanding in real time. Like they got it really quick. So that was cool because, you know, I mean, it's that's probably what the Undertaker felt like in like 1993 or whatever, you know. It was like what is this? How are people supposed to digest this? But when you hear that reaction, you're like, wow, okay, the this is a story going correctly. Um, and it's hard to breathe in that thing. Unfortunately, I lost. So
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's definitely hard to breathe in a casket. Yes, 100%. It's got to
yeah,
be a little bit uncomfortable, eh?
yeah, it's not the easiest.
No.
Yeah.
And then you got to wait for them to wheel you all the way to backstage before you can get out of it. Yeah, it's got to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was like up against it, like trying to suck air to the seams.
Oh,
Because you're tired, you know, it's not even just that you just hard to breathe in there, but like you get pushed in there, you're tired. I mean, it's like go to the gym and run sprints on a treadmill and then get into a little tiny box, like without like just as soon as you jump off the treadmill and you're huffing about it, then go into a little tiny box and have somebody hold it shut for like 3 minutes. That's what it felt like because it's like, yeah, I'm already like, oh. So
absolutely. I could totally see that. So, in terms of when Osprey moved to AEW and the opportunity for leadership came up to take over the Empire, was there discussion of maybe Khan taking over? Was there discussion of maybe giving Akira that push? Or was it always like we're going to build this around you're the next man up kind of thing? How did that all work or transpire?
the so the dudes in the lot I didn't really think about this part of it until later, but the dudes in the locker room that are unassociated with the group after the facts had kind of when I was explaining the process, what I'll explain to you in a second too.
Mhm.
When I kind of would like share with the other guys like the process of how we got to where we are, um, the consensus among everybody was like, yeah, that's obvious. Why wouldn't it be you? You know, like, but to me, I didn't see like why I would be the obvious choice. Like, I mean, I'm a wrestle dad to a lot of the guys, and I'm like an elder voice in the locker room, but it didn't occur to me that like I should be in that seat necessarily. But I guess everybody else was like, yeah, that should be the natural progression is it would be TJ. Um, but as far as like within the group, it wasn't really something that fell to me first or as like simple as that. Like initially when there was going to be a transition, um I was completely uninvolved and uninterested in that part of it.
Mhm.
Um I'd already been like kind of a silent leader for the group. Every time we would design merch or try to think of creative ideas or like create a presentation or lay matches out or lay out story ideas or anything like that, it was always a collaborative effort between me and Will already. Like it was already, for the most part, kind of 50-50. Uh, and that's just because I was like an elder statesman. But when Will was leaving, you know, first he and the office infrastructure, like they went to Ocon and Cobb first and asked, "Do you want to do this?" And they didn't want to do it, and they you know they went down the line. Everybody that was like kind of like upon entry. So then you know they went to Hanare, same answer. And then it kind of fell to me. You know, Akira's young, and I don't think that they really considered for him. Callum is super young, so you know, and brand new. So then it sort of fell to me, and it wasn't something that I asked for or anything, but it was just something I knew I could do. And you know, even upon kind of landing on me, I made a second round to everybody, like to Ocon and to Cobb and Hanari, like, guys, if anybody else feels like they would rather do this, please, like, do it. Take the opportunity. But I mean, it's like Thor's hammer, like you can elect anybody you want to try and pick it up, but somebody has to actually pick it up, you know. And I don't, this may kind of sound kind of harsh, but it's like if you don't have the balls to do it, then it's not going to be you. And it was like, it felt to me, I had already been leading the guys, so I just continued what I was already doing. And I made it clear to everybody, like, I don't think that we really have or need a leader anyway. I feel like we've always been a committee, and it's still that way to this day. When we think of merchandise or like creative ideas, it's a collaborative effort. We all hit the group chat, we put our ideas in, we vote on it, all that sort of thing. Essentially, they just needed somebody on camera that can lead the pose and just sort of carry the title. But as far as I'm concerned, if a guy has an important angle, enter last. Let's use that guy's music or whatever, give them top billing for the night so that the focus can be on them. And maybe it's Akira with maybe a junior title match or something like that, or maybe it's Cobb and something else. And Okan is a fantastic promo, and obviously he's the best Japanese speaker that we have, the only native one. So I think that it's important for him to maintain a specific position in that way as well. So I think that we've always been a committee, but that's kind of how it came about. It was 2 rounds of who wants to do it, and it's like somebody's got to step forward, and if you hit a ball to first and nobody's there to grab it, then you're never going to get that out. So I just said, I'll do it,
Nice. I love that. Thank you so much for that honest answer. That was fantastic. We're 5 years into this decade, and I can think of one match that, in my honest opinion, stands the test of time. I actually went back again in preparing for this interview and rewatched that match, and that is you versus Josh Alexander in that insane Iron Man match. That match, hands down, is one of my favorite matches of this decade to this day still. And I don't care. I'm not kissing your ass. I'm telling you the honest truth, man. I love that match. I love the story you guys told. I don't know if there's anybody else that's ever kind of shared that opinion with you. Don't get me wrong, you and Josh have gone on to have some incredible matches since then. But that Iron Man match, to me, honestly and truly, TJ, that was special. That was a special, special match. Can you touch on that match?
You're wearing a We the North hat. Of course you're gonna like it.
But that's also for my boys, okay? Win or lose, Raptors Nation.
I got you. No, I appreciate it. It's kind of gotten this I don't want to say like a cult popularity to it, but like there's a lot of guys that kind of fight for like relevancy of that match. I think because it was such poor timing in the world, like it came at such a low point for the industry, and almost every one of the stages had like low recollection and low like attention span. Like people can't even remember what was going on in WWE at the time for the most part, I feel like, and New Japan or AEW, everything. So I think there's a lot of people that sort of share that opinion, and I see it all the time. I'll get tagged and stuff, and they they really fight for it to like climb out of obscurity historically, I guess. But I appreciate that. I take a lot of pride in that. There's not a lot of stuff that I really, really like as far as like hang my hat on. Like someday I'll look back and forever, like I'll still be proud of it someday. That was one of them that was pretty special to me.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible. Now, I do have to ask this because it wouldn't be your and my relationship. The CWC, we've always talked about it. We talked about how great it was. It was a great time and all that stuff, and went through the history of that. And, you mentioned him earlier. Ye who shall not be named, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He is no longer affiliated with the WWE. Now there is a changing of the guard. We are in new era, and creative freedom seems to be kind of taking shape over there, or a little bit looser of the reins. If an opportunity ever came back for TJP, not to have a full-fledged run, but to go back for a little bit here and there, would you consider going back to WWE now, knowing that Triple H is in that chair?
Um, yeah, I mean, I would have always had that answer, for whatever, you know, goes on or has been on with Vince, my interaction, my experience with him as a boss, which is that's all it was, like was a good one. So, I mean, same as my experience with Hunter. So I that answer would be the same either way
Mhm.
as far as that goes. It does seem like the landscape is changing over there. I don't know if that means that's a good thing for me or not good thing for me. Who knows? It could be a bad thing. It could be the floodgates are so wide open now that it's like, hey, we don't need this guy. And I am very different now. I would not being interested in going back and being the guy that left there because it's been so long since I was that guy. And that was only, you know, everything I do, Puma, Suez, everything is an extension of who I am in real life. And that's only a fraction of who I was in real life. And in a lot of ways, it was not at all who I was in real life because it was a product of a creative team that didn't know me, unfortunately. But what I'm doing now is about as authentic to me as anything I've ever done. But I feel like they don't need what I am now. So I don't know. If they were to say, "Hey, we want what you are now and who you are now and we don't want to obscure that art in any way, present it as you are," then yeah, I would love to. But I just feel like they don't really that's not a player that they need on the roster, I don't think. But would I love to do it? Yeah, I would love to do
I think it's a player that they need in the roster because I love that word you used.
Well, we'll
Why are you
see.
laughing? It's the truth, brother.
They have a few monsters on the roster. They got some red mist on the roster. They got, some spooky people on the roster. Who knows? Maybe they need one more. If it were up to me, everybody would be a scary, spooky monster but that's just me. That's that.
Michael's behind me right
That
there,
would
and
be
so is
me.
Psycho Clown, man. I got Michael and
Uh,
Psycho Clown right there.
but yeah, I would love to do it. And there's a lot of things I would love to do, even in regards to the crossover of artistic connection. I would love for the Aswang to wrestle the demon. I would love for the Aswang to wrestle Shinsuke
Yes.
as this Ronin samurai. I would love for, the Aswang to play a part in the Wyatt Six or whatever. Like there's a lot of cool things that I think would be fun to do. Um, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yes, I would love to do it.
Absolutely. See, and armchair booking from me, you just hit everything on the head. I was like, yeah, I'd love to see you. I was gonna say that if you go back, I would love to see you and Shinsuke just tear it down. I would love to see you and Finn Balor if they bring the demon back for one night. Whew, man, the demon versus the Oswang, that'd be fire. Fire, dude. See? See?
You
One
talked
final.
me into it. You
There you
talked me.
go. There we go. WWE, pay attention. This has money all over it. I tell you. I tell you. One more question. I'm going to let you go enjoy the rest of your evening. But you talked about it earlier, like literally a few minutes ago. Authenticity. Authenticity is very important. And you've said that this is the most authentic that you've ever been. And we talked about that creative freedom and stuff like that. Is there an evolution past the Oswang? Because literally, there could be so many incantations that it could go on for quite a while. But is there like a final form that we could see of this character as it progresses to keep it as
It's funny.
authentic?
When the Wrestle Kingdom image came out, there was one person that specifically asked me, is this the final form? And the thing is that, and this is a little bit of a soapbox answer because it encompasses a lot of stuff, and from previous talks, I'm a really positive person, and um I can be sarcastic and immature and snarky, but like in my soul, like I believe in positivity and being proactive in goodwill and things like that. And I spent a lot of my life being bullied. And so much of what I've done with my art is take elements that were negatives and created a positive out of it. For example, TJP in WWE, the video game character. For so many years, I was criticized and told like you do things too easy. You make things look too soft and too easily. It's too perfect. You're like there was a lot of criticism for the way that I worked. And it was Claudio actually, who's a good friend of mine, that told me one day, he goes, I used to get that too. But eventually I just said, F them, just forget it. Just do what you want. And so I decided to create a character that, well, you know what? This character does move perfectly. So criticize that. This is exactly what you're making fun of me for. I'm gonna go ahead and be that, you know. And I was like, you're in, you're out of touch. You're dated. You're this and that. Like, okay, then everything about me is going to be retrofitted. And so I created that. And the Aswang honestly was so many people uh, tell me that I never age and I look like a little kid still. I'm 40 years old, and they're like, you look like you should still be carded, like Enzo, right? And I said, you know what? I'm going to take something that I've been waiting to do for 20 years because I wanted to create this when I was creating Puma, but the technology of the time and opportunity of the time just did not allow for it when I was a teenager in a big company and I didn't have the trust and faith in the locker room or the office. You just don't get those opportunities. Nor did I have the money to create a $10,000 Great Muta costume. Now it's a little bit easier to do in 2025, right? But I said, okay, I can take all this negative, roasting and I could turn it into something that is still something that we can joke about in the locker room, but it's something that becomes a passion project for me. Um, that being said, the beauty of what I've created now is also because I want to be able to age gracefully, I do still look like I'm 25. I still feel like I'm 25, but you know, I who knows how long I have left? Could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 15 years, and I don't know. But as I change, I wanted to create something that I could do forever. And this is something I could do forever because there is no limit to it. So no, there's really no final form to it. That's the beauty of it. It's always going to be scary or quirky or funny, and I could change it a million times or I could never change it at all. It's me taking something that is a negative time wise and a negative personality wise and a negative socially, and putting it all in one ball and saying, I'll make it one big positive for me forever. I never want to not do this. So this is probably the last version of me that I'll ever create. Like there's never going to be like a TJP, the whatever, the superhero. Like this is, like I said, this is authentic me. Like if you hung out with me in real life, what you see is what I'm into. So this is the first time I'm giving people, the real me, but it is something that I think has the freedom to be whatever I feel like making it forever. So no, I mean, there's never going to be a final form. We'll just keep rolling and keep inventing new versions of it.
I love that. I love that. And I think that is the absolute best way to end this conversation. And you know what? You have never been sarcastic and you have never been snarky with me. You've always been respectful and kind, just like I have with you. Even before we got on, I was like, hey, man, if you're running late and life's getting in the way, you let me know, we'll reschedule. And you're like, nope, it's here. I'm on. Let's do it. And that's the relationship we have. Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong, I don't think.
Not wrong. No, not wrong. I don't know. I like to reciprocate energy. If somebody doesn't come off on a negative foot with me, then I'll probably never be negative with them. And even if they do, I might be negative in on the path to positivity, and that's always where I want to try to get it back to. So
Absolutely. Dude, you are positive. Your energy is electric. This interview was fantastic. And now I'm probably gonna have nightmares because the Aswang is gonna be in my head. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Before I let you go, obviously, please shout out any socials or any projects you got coming up. And you know what? Don't put that horror writing on hold, man. If you got 5 minutes on a flight or you got a 20-minute bus ride, pull that script out. I'm intrigued to see how you could write this folklore tale. I really am. I really am. I think the right person telling this story could be magic. And it has to come from someone who knows the history and the legend. It can't come from me, a Canadian kid from Toronto. I don't know a thing about it, but I'll pay for it. I'll watch it. So if you get a chance, man, pull that script back out. I think it'd be pretty cool, dude. Straight up.
I'll give it a shot. You again, you talked me into it. I don't really have a whole lot to plug. I mean, everything about me is the same. If anything, I've become more reclusive over the years, being a father and just growing older. I'm still in the same place. You guys can find me in New Japan. And the one thing that is new is my wife and I decided to start a passion project of our own, and we are promoting a boutique wrestling show. It's called Pinche Loco, and it's located right here. We have a home in Vegas, and it's a little bar show at the famous Nerd Bar in Las Vegas. You may have seen wrestlers pass through there. You may not realize that you know what bar it is, but a lot of wrestlers pass through there and put up social posts. And we created this little tiny boutique mystery card that we put on every about month or so, maybe every 6 weeks or so. Next one's coming up on Valentine's Day. It's never going to leave the bar. It's probably never going to, we don't want it to grow or become like the next PWG or anything. But if you're ever in Las Vegas and you ever want to come see an obscure hole in the wall mystery card show with us and our friends with cameos from a lot of famous people that happen to just pass through the bar, come check it out. Pinche Loco Pro, you can find it on your socials. I think that's the exact handle. My wife controls all that stuff, but
Nice.
I just
love
wanted her to be able to be somebody else's boss other than me. So
Yeah, absolutely. I
But
love
yeah,
it. And
yeah. If you check anything out, that's the only thing that's new. It's not really me. It's really for the wife. But come check out the show that we put together. And that's it. Thank you again, George, for having me on.
no problem, man. I will follow that socials, and anything that you want to promote, tag me in it. Even though I'm in Canada, a lot of people go to Vegas because we like that warm weather. So I'll start sending it to as many people as they can, because I don't want it to grow, but I want people to watch how cool it is. So for sure, man, for sure.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you as always for being a guest. Guys, that's it for this one. Straight Talk Wrestling in the can. Peace, love, and wrestling. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Yo, we just people from the north side. Want some Timmy's at the shore fine. Winter ready on the four ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on the own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side.